I sleep when you can play Dom Team Death, the free-for-all, CTF and Sabotage. Man, I play them all from search up to headquarters, down the list of demolition. Objectively speaking, to win is my only mission. If I sin, it's not by omission of order. Hey YouTubers, welcome to My Bouncy Lady Episode 2 with HARDCOREgmr4lyf. I'm going to give you some tips and strategies on using what is my favorite detection-based explosive in Call of Duty. Now, we're going to start out with the map Underground. Now, on Underground, there's only 5 spots that I like to call Boomin' Betty spots. And what these are is where you can set a Bouncing Betty next to something else that is also explosive, and that's going to amplify your explosion and also bring you certain other benefits. So we're going to start off today with probably my favorite Boomin' Betty spot of the entire game. Now, what makes this particular Boomin' Betty spot so useful is that it protects one of the best head glitches in the entire game. As you can see, just lay it down next to those propane tanks there. It's the ideal spot. And basically, the head glitch I'm talking about is that sheet of sheetrock off to my right there. There's a ledge on the boxes next to it, and you can just jump right up there. If you're standing, your head and shoulders will only be exposed. If you're crouching, just the top of your head will be exposed. And you can head glitch the hell out of people there. As you can see, even going prone, Cynthia could not avoid that. The only way to avoid that particular placement is with Stalker Pro. Now we're going to see an in-game clip of Cynthia doing this particular Bouncing Betty placement. She lays it down, walks away, and in very short order, she's got a kill with it. Let's watch the Betty cam. And as you can see, this guy runs right through, and he actually makes it through the door, but the force of the added explosion still gets him. Very excellent Betty placement. Now this next Betty placement I'm showing you is not a boomer, but it's a very effective one nonetheless. And you know, guys, when you're placing a Bouncing Betty, you want it to be a complete surprise to the person. As you can see, I placed it out of sight just behind that barrel right before people come up those stairs. And you know, it's so important to surprise people with the Betties. If they see it, they're not going to die by it. You know, a large portion of the COD community already knows all you got to do is drop prone to avoid the damage from a Bouncing Betty. And the rest of them, if they happen to see that Betty, even if they don't know to drop prone, they're going to know to avoid it. So you don't want them to see it by any means. As you can see right there, anyone trying to run up those stairs, you're not going to be able to escape that Betty running up because the Betty deploys its damage upward. Now, as you can see, she's going to do it again. This time she's even going to get partway up the stairs, but she's going to go prone. As you can see, you know, if you do that quick enough, you can still escape that Betty placement. Now, here's a clip of Sin actually doing this in-game. She lays the Betty down, walks away, gets a kill or two, and bam! There you go. Now, as this Betty cam clearly illustrates, you should always place your Betty at the bottom of a set of stairs, never at or near the top unless you know for a fact the enemy is going up. And the reason for that is, if that had been at the top, he would have easily been able to evade simply by running forward. Whereas, you know, he had nowhere to go downward at the bottom, and he didn't know the prone trick, so he died. Now, here's another of my favorite Betty placements. And as you can see, Sin doesn't go prone super quick here. She uses default and not tactical, so, you know, she actually has to reach over to B. But as you can see, even if you use default, there's no real excuse to not be able to escape Betties if you know the prone escape. So, you know, I highly suggest you guys make sure and just drill that into your muscle memory. Here's a clip from actual gameplay where I use this particular Betty spot to take out an enemy with great effect. This area, as many of us know, is extremely high traffic, and you will often find yourself getting the Betty kill very shortly after placement, as you'll see here in this Betty cam. Now, the final Betty placement that I'm going to go over with you on this particular map is over here on this side of the map. Right at the bottom of these stairs is actually one of my favorite personal Betty placements. But I found something very curious when me and Sin tested this out. Now, watch this. She's actually able to run right up past this Betty placement. Now, I puzzled at this because I've never found it that, you know, people could actually run up to avoid a Betty. And so as you'll see, I wanted to test this out a little further. I set a Betty about halfway up the stairs. Here in a minute, I'll set a Betty about 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way up the stairs. But this halfway point, she actually could run up just past it too. And I was kind of puzzling at this. I'm like, how the hell is she doing this? Because really, you should not be able to run up past a Betty. I mean, that's contradictory to all my experience. But then I realized I had remembered watching something by Woody's Gamertag. I know some of you guys might have watched the same video where he showed if you run against a wall, you can actually run, I believe, is 10-15% faster. And so I decided finally in the end that the reason you can run up past this particular Betty placement, and as a matter of fact, if there's any nice long set of stairs such as this, which as you can see is enclosed in a nice tight hallway, so you know you're running against the wall, it gives you that extra burst of speed, you know, at least with the shotgun high mobility weapon that she was using to actually move up and run above that in time. As you can see, we tested it out on this lower stairway after the fact. It's like, wait, if she saves up her sprint, can she just sprint past this on stairs? And no, it happened to be the narrow hallway. So if you find a long set of stairs with narrow hallway, you can evade a Betty that way. So that pretty well covers Underground. Let's go ahead and move right on to the next map, and that's going to be Carbon. Now, guys, I rather enjoy Carbon. It's one of my favorite maps on Modern Warfare 3, and there are a ton of Boom and Betty spots on this map, guys. Look at all those red dots. Me and Sin counted 22. And, you know, with all the Boom and Betty spots around this map, especially in the early part of a match, there is no reason that you should be placing a Bounce and Betty where it's not a Boom and Betty. I mean, there's just on either end of this map, all over the place, you got trucks, you got barrels, you got propane canisters, so this is an extremely good level for the Bounce and Betty. Now, due to the high volume of Boom and Betty spots on this particular map, and the fact I like to keep these videos under 10 minutes, I'm just going to show you my two favorite placements, and that's one of them. Right next to the propane canister, right next to that door, and, you know, that pretty much covers that entire side of the room. That propane canister takes out everything else in that corner of the room, and blam, your opponent is done. Only defense for that, obviously, is Stalker Pro, which is going to delay the explosion long enough for your enemy to get the hell out of dodge. But if they're not rocking that, and they trigger that Betty, they're done. Now, to go ahead and illustrate just how effective this particular Betty placement can be, I'm going to show a clip of me playing in an online rank match and using this particular spot. So as you can see, I take out a couple enemies to start with. I'm going to lay down the Bounce and Betty right in the prescribed area, and we're going to go into super fast move. Sorry for stealing your shit, Blade. And then we're going to go ahead, shoot another guy, and back into slow mode. Blam! And it's time for a Betty cam. And as you may know while watching this particular Betty cam, my hapless foe here has just about as much chance as the last Krispy Kreme donut at a police convention. He is done. So guys, let's move right along to the final Betty placement in this particular installment of My Bouncy Lady. And this is a really good one, guys. You know, it's a very high traffic area, which is good, but at the same time, you got to realize these canisters are probably going to be exploded fairly early on in the match. So it's one you want to use early for sure. So Sin's going to come over here and join me in a second, and she's going to lay down her tack, run on in here. She's going to go prone to, you know, try and avoid the Betty, but as we know, the only escape for these Boom and Bettys, Stalker Pro. And, you know, when you force your opponent to use Stalker Pro to avoid your Bounce and Bettys, obviously now they're not using Dead Silence, and you can sound whore them much more effectively, especially for a, you know, a heavy free-for-all player such as myself. You know, it makes this a very good tactic to use. Speaking of which, we are now watching a clip of me using that particular Betty placement in a free-for-all, and the obligatory Betty cam afterwards. And with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this episode of My Bouncy Lady. As always, guys, thank you so much for viewing my videos. Please rate, comment, hell, subscribe, and bump them on the Respawn Army app if you like what you see. And I'm out. Have a great one, guys.
Keep it on the dial where you know that it's hot, cause you know that on my channel I upload a lot of videos of all different types of varieties, gameplays, mini tashes, live comms, even some comedy bits. Ain't no playlist titled greatest hits, not yet, but you can bet.